Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Walter Dial, tax partner at Gilman, Rosenberg, and Friedman CPAs, located here in Bethesda, Maryland. Our mission here on the Exit Readiness Podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building transferable business value and for planning for your eventual exit from the business. One thing we absolutely know is that every business owner is eventually going to exit. Not a lot of things are absolute about owning and running a business, but that is. And so we want to help you exit successfully and on your own terms and conditions. If you've listened to this podcast in the past, you know we typically interview a guest who is a subject matter expert, as I mentioned. Today, though, we've decided that our subject matter expert is no other than our own Walter Dial, my co-host here, and we're going to discuss maximizing after-tax returns on the sale of a business with the utilization of opportunity zones. Walter, in helping owners increase the sellable value of their business for a successful exit, there is the aspect of building value, of course, but also protecting or preserving the value of the business. And one of the ways that we want to help owners preserve value, right at the top of the list, really, when planning a sale, is to do the right tax planning well ahead of time. If we can maximize after-tax returns on a sale, we've helped that owner optimize their exit. And one tax planning opportunity that we're hearing a whole lot about these days that's really popped up everywhere in the investment world is opportunity zones. Opportunity zones provide an exiting business owner, and in this case, we're focused on business owners today and their exit. For an exiting business owner, a way to not just make a social impact and create positive change in the world, but also at the same time maximize their after-tax return, as I mentioned, on the sale of their business. So let's get right into it. Walter, how and when did opportunity zones come into effect?
Well, opportunity zones were part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 17, which is basically the new tax law that kicked in 2018. So that's when these funds first became available. Unfortunately, like anything, there are a lot of complexities involved with the opportunity zone opportunity. Not so much on the taxpayer side, but just from a IRS standpoint. So it took them a while to come out with regulations. So during 18, these really didn't come up that much. But then beginning in 19, since regs came out at the very end of 18, they really started becoming more popular, and we've actually had some clients that have used them, and you're seeing them all over the internet as far as investment opportunities.
So, our listeners are probably familiar with like-kind exchanges, 1031, 1035. What are the differences between using an opportunity zone versus doing a traditional like-kind exchange?
Well, as we're going to see, with the like-kind exchange, you have a potential for a full deferral of your gain. With the qualified opportunity zones, you don't quite have that same opportunity. So with the tax benefits of the opportunity zone program are quite a bit different than the basic like-kind exchange program. So let's take a look at how the opportunity zone program actually works. So first of all, if you have a gain of any type of capital gain, then number one, you don't have to pay the tax on that until April of 2027. So you're getting an immediate deferral.
And that's a capital gain on any type of investment. It's not limited to, of course, in this case, a business.
That's right.
Like real estate, even
even your stock portfolio.
Right, even your stock portfolio.
Yeah, any type of capital gain. So right off the bat, you have a tax deferral, and you're going to report that gain on your 2026 return, which means you're paying tax in April of 2027. That assumes that you've rolled your gain into an Opportunity Zone program. If you continue to hold that Opportunity Zone investment for a 5-year period, then 10% of your original gain is completely eliminated. If you hold it for another 2 years, meaning a total of 7 years, then an additional 5% of the gain is completely eliminated. So if you hold your Opportunity Zone investment for a period of 7 years, then 15% of your gain is completely eliminated, and the tax on the remaining 85% is not paid until April of 2027.
Yeah, so in a typical situation, you're absolutely going to realize the 10% because you're going to hold it for 6 years to 2026. Well, that's assuming that we're doing it this year, though, right? And not next year, the year after. Okay, gotcha.
Right. And then the final tax incentive is that for the Opportunity Zone investment itself, if you hold that for 10 years, any appreciation in that investment, the gain is completely eliminated. So if you hold your Opportunity Zone investment for 10 years, you're going to reduce your original gain by 15%. You're going to defer the tax on that gain until April of 2027, and you're not going to pay any tax on the appreciation of the actual Opportunity Zone investment. So let's just kind of walk through a simple example. Let's say you have a taxpayer who owns stock with a basis of $20,000 and he sells it for $120,000. So now he has a long-term gain of $100,000. So here's what's going to happen. If he turns around and invests that $100,000 within 180 days into an Opportunity Zone program, he's immediately going to defer the tax or the tax payment until April of 2027.
Now, he can set up his own Opportunity Zone program.
Yeah, one of the really cool things about the Opportunity Zone programs is the IRS has made them easy in that it's a one-page form that you file that basically attests that you qualify, that what you've set up qualifies as an Opportunity Zone. So, for instance, you could do nothing more complicated than buy a rental property located in an Opportunity Zone. That would qualify. Or you could buy a business that's operating in an Opportunity Zone. So, yeah, it's very easy even to do it on your own. So let's take my example where you have a $100,000 gain. Let's say you invest in an Opportunity Zone that after 10 years has actually increased by $50,000. Or let's say it increases by $50,000 almost immediately for this example. So if you hold the fund for a period of 2 years, then your $100,000 gain, as long as you hold it for, if you hold it for 2 years, your $100,000 gain is still a $100,000 gain. You've got a $50,000 gain on your Opportunity Zone, and you're going to pay all the tax at the end of that 2-year period. So you've given up your deferral to 2027, and you've given up the opportunities to reduce your gain by up to 15% because you got rid of it after 2 years. Let's say instead you hold it for 5 years. Now your original $100,000 gain has become a $90,000 gain because you got to exclude 10%. You're still paying tax on the $50,000 Opportunity Zone appreciation because you haven't held it long enough. So you end up with a $140,000 gain on which tax is due at the end of the 5-year period. Let's now say you hold it for 7 years. So now your original gain of $100,000 has been reduced to $85,000. You still owe tax on your $50,000 Opportunity Zone fund appreciation. So your total gain is now $135,000. And then let's say you hold it for the full 10-year period. Your original gain of $100,000 is still $85,000 because the most it can be reduced is down by 15%. But now you don't owe any tax on that $50,000 Opportunity Zone appreciation. So you've taken what was potentially a $150,000 gain and you've reduced it to $85,000. So that's the power of the Opportunity Zone program, kind of in a nutshell.
Yeah, so let me clarify something. The 2026 year date, that is being used because we're 2019 and that's 7 years out, right? If you're doing a transaction in 2023, then it would be 2030 is the date we would be talking about?
Well, 2026 is still an important date because that's 10 years from when the law was enacted, which is why they use it like that. So if by 2026 you could still have to pay the tax because your 7-year period could be up. So the tax on your original gain is going to be due in 2026. The opportunity zone investment you continue to hold, and the 2026 date doesn't really come into play.
Well, you've just discussed a lot of the pros, of course. Are there any cons? What's the downside risk to setting up your own opportunity zone and taking advantage of it, or investing in one?
Yeah, they're really, I don't really see any cons, because the only con, of course, would be is from an investment risk standpoint. If you invest in a program that loses money, then you really haven't accomplished anything. But other than that, you're not tied in. You can shut down your opportunity zone program at any time. You may not reap the full tax benefits, but you're never any worse off than you would have been originally. You asked a good question about setting up your own opportunity zone fund, and I think we should cover just kind of what you need to do to qualify. So number one, you have 180 days after the sale of your asset to reinvest in a qualified opportunity zone. That's important because, for instance, we have a lot of clients who have invested in publicly traded partnerships and other type of partnerships. For that purpose, they could get a K-1 at the end of the year, and for whatever reason, they may not have been reading their mail, or the general partner may have done a poor job of communicating with them. But they may not realize that at the partnership level, there's been a very large gain. So even though you only have 180 days to reinvest your proceeds, if you're a partner in a partnership, the 180 days doesn't begin running until the end of the partnership year. So you could receive a K-1 in February, and you still have time to take advantage of the Opportunity Zone program. So that's an important thing to realize regarding the 180 days. It's generally 180 days if you're selling your own asset, but if it's through a partnership, it's 180 days from the end of that partnership tax year, which is really good. Another important point is you only have to reinvest your gain. You don't have to reinvest everything, just the gain piece. And your gain cannot result from the sale or exchange with a related party. So, for instance,
okay, say that again. That's an important point, I think.
The related party?
Reinvesting the gain.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that more when we talk about like-kind exchanges versus opportunity zone. But you only have to invest your gain. So if you sell something for 120 and only 20 is your gain, you only have to invest that piece in order to defer the tax on the gain. And then, there's a publication, or you go online and Google qualified opportunity zones. Every state was able to submit them to the IRS, and they're not slums. I mean, Georgetown has got some qualified opportunity zones. San Diego
I think there's like
has
25 opportunity zones in the Washington D.C. metro area.
Yeah, so there are some good investment opportunities there. If you're going to invest in a business, it has to have. Has to be doing business in the opportunity zone and certain other qualifications as far as number of employees and where the assets are located, that type of thing. But they'll certify to you that they qualify. Do you want to discuss the comparison to the like-kind exchange?
Yeah, please.
So, like-kind exchange, a couple of things that are important. Another provision in the new tax law was that like-kind exchanges only work with real estate transactions now. I mean, before, they never worked with like stock and things like that, but they did used to work with other types of personal property. But now it's only real estate. So that's one difference. An opportunity zone fund, you can defer your gain from any type of capital gain, whereas a like-kind exchange only involves real estate. What I think is probably the most important difference, and it's the one we kind of hit upon, is that for a like-kind exchange to work completely, you have to roll over all of your proceeds, principal and gain. To the extent you don't do that, whatever cash you keep, which is called boot, whatever boot you keep will be subject to tax up to the extent of your gain. Whereas the opportunity zone, you only have to reinvest your gain. One of the problems we have...
Well, and two, you don't have to reinvest in a like-kind asset.
Right. You don't have to turn around and invest in real estate. Because, we see that a lot with clients, especially clients who, maybe they had one rental property and they've just gotten kind of tired of it. It's gone up in value. They'd like to sell it. They're not happy about paying the tax, but they don't want to continue being a landlord. So with the like-kind exchange, their only option was to trade real estate for real estate. So the opportunity zone gives them a lot more flexibility. Number one, they can keep the principal, and number two, they could potentially invest in something other than real estate. The one big advantage that the 1031 exchange has is that theoretically, the tax can completely go away in a 1031 exchange. And that's, one reason why so many of the richest people in the world are real estate people. Because if you think about it, you could basically continue doing like-kind exchanges until you die. Then when you die, all your properties receive a step-up in basis, meaning the capital gains disappears. With the Opportunity Zone Fund, you're always...
And then that generation could continue the tradition of like-kind exchanges.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really...
Which is often what happens.
Yeah. So it's really a big bonus for real estate. For the Opportunity Zone Fund, all you're ever going to get is the 15% reduction on your gain and the 100% reduction on the Opportunity Zone investment opportunity.
All right. So then as we wrap up here, well, first off, is there anything else that you think you need to communicate that's going to be helpful that you haven't talked about already?
No, but I think one thing you hit upon in the very beginning was that, we can put into place tax minimization strategies ahead of time, prior to the sale, that are going to really give you a much larger bang for your buck. You're going to be able to do a lot more creative things, and you're really going to be able to put in some strategies that can help to minimize the tax.
Yeah, on the sale of your business.
Yes. The Opportunity Zone strategy is great for someone who didn't plan. Now they've got this gain, and it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do with it? Well, you have 180 days to think about investing in one of these Opportunity Zone programs to at least get some deferral, and maybe at least get a 15% reduction in the gain you have to report. So it can be a good after the fact strategy for someone who really didn't plan ahead.
Yeah, and again, they only have to, if they wanted to, they could just reinvest the gain and not the entire principal in the gain.
Yeah, and that is a really big deal. So I think the takeaway is it's a great strategy. In the last few months, I'd say starting in about March of 2019, we've seen a lot more Opportunity Zone programs coming from kind of the mainline investment houses, so you can have a little more confidence that what you're investing in, has real validity and solid assets behind it. But like any other investment, you got to do your due diligence on it. But this is certainly something worth looking at for anyone selling a business or selling any other asset that has a gain.
One more question. What if someone's starting a business today and they start it in an Opportunity Zone? What kind of impact do they experience?
That's a great question because, the way the Opportunity Zone program has always been discussed is in the context of someone rolling over a gain. You don't have to do that. You can actually start a business in an Opportunity Zone, and if you hold that for 10 years, you will not pay tax on the appreciation. Yeah,
so then I think you've answered this question, but maybe you would have something else to say. When do you think, generally speaking, then, from a tax perspective, it can make sense for an owner to consider an Opportunity Zone?
No, I would just say this is an opportunity that any business owner who has recently sold their business should look at. If they've got disposable cash that they don't need right away, that they're looking to invest anyway, why not look at this as a way to potentially reduce your gain by 15% and get the tax benefits for the Opportunity Zone program itself.
Fantastic. Okay, so listeners, if you'd like to reach out to Walter about Opportunity Zones, or, building the value of your business or planning your exit, you can reach Walter at 301-951-9090. If you want to talk to me and our firm about building the value of your business or planning your exit, you can reach us at 301-859-0860. Check out our ExitReadiness.com, our online, on-demand exit planning course, and consider attending our one-day Exit Readiness BASECAMP on August 28th at the Lurn Center in Rockville, Maryland. Walter and I are going to be presenting there. If you have questions about opportunity zones per this podcast, you could probably catch him at a break or something and tap into his knowledge a little bit more there. You can get more information at nslp.com or exitreadiness.com on the Basecamp. And if you register and use the code PODCAST, all lowercase, you can receive a 25% discount on the registration fee. So until next time on the Exit Readiness Podcast, this is Pat Ennis and Walter Dials signing off.